It's over 9,000!
Welcome, Super Elite Warriors, to Final Forum, a podcast for the discussion of all things Dragon Ball. I am your host, Jelli, an elite recruiting member of the Frieza Force, on a mission to find the best warriors from across the galaxy to join the greatest army of all time. And I am joined, as always, by my new recruit co-host.
This is the Bekinney.
And, Bekinney, before we get too deep into this episode, I should just point out that it really works out nicely for us. Not that our episodes ever are scripted. These little bumpers that we do before we get into our main topic of the day are always just our life.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we're never scripted. There's not some pre-existing story that's been written down by someone who may or may not be credited in the outro segments of our shows. There's no pre-planned story, and it just works out nicely for us that every time we have kind of a special episode that falls a bit out of line with our normal point of discussion, which is kind of going through the anime and going through the manga, that we don't have a whole lot going on.
Wait, hold on. What's my next line?
Ooh.
I'm just kidding.
I said it's not scripted. Jeez.
I'm trying to help you out here.
We're hanging out on the Frieza planet that we just arrived at, and this week we're going to ultimately delve into the new movie, Dragon Ball Super Superhero, that has been coming for a while now. It got delayed. We'll maybe talk a little bit about that. It finally came out. We both got a chance to see it. We broadcasted it to our ship here. And
it's amazing what you can do with technology these days. Streaming services are really doing a fine job.
And we got to see it. We'll give you our thoughts. But before we do that, because this is a little bit outside our norm, and because this episode, peek at how the sausage is made type of thing, is recorded a little bit more timely, we are going to delve into just a little bit of news and talk about do a little news roundup. We don't usually do that, but there's been some interesting developments. The first that we wanted to just briefly touch on is, we posted it to our social media already, but Swatch has entered into a cross promotion, whatever, with Dragon Ball license, and has, how many is it, like 7 or 8 different watches?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
There's Goku, Vegeta, Roshi, Gohan, Majin Buu, Cell, and Frieza, and I don't think I'm forgetting any. It's a crime that there's no Piccolo. It's an outrage that there's no Krillin.
But in my opinion, they make up for it with Master Roshi.
You could break any watch and call it a Yamcha watch.
Hey, a Yamcha watch would be useless because it wouldn't work because the battery would be dead.
But I thought the Goku one is neat. It's basically just the kanji that Goku wears, and the colors of Goku. I think that one's neat. The Roshi one is probably the best one. The hands are little blood splurts for Roshi getting a bloody nose. That's super funny.
It was pretty clever, I thought.
The Frieza one is neat. That one is basically it's almost exactly what you would think of if you said design like a Frieza watch. It's just, purple and white, but it very much just has like a feel of Frieza to it. Same with the Cell. The Cell just kind of has the patterning of Cell. Majin Buu is like pink with just the Majin symbol on the face of the watch. There's nothing to write home about on that one, really. The Gohan one is purple and then has like the Kamehameha blasting out of it. It looks okay.
I think it's supposed to be like the end of the Cell fight, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, because there's also like little bits of like electricity flying all over the place.
Yeah. And then the huge miss, though, is, in my opinion, the Vegeta watch. I get what they were going for, but I think it's a miss. So if you look at it, it's the band is like Vegeta's colors, right? It's the blue and the white, and it has that appearance of Saiyan armor. But then the face is red. And inside that red, there's a silhouette of Goku. And I get what they were going for, is that it's supposed to be like a scouter, but you put a silhouette of Goku on your Vegeta watch.
I see nothing wrong here.
I just think it's a miss, So
it's like all those Vegeta's fans cried out in anguish and were suddenly silenced. Oh wait, now I'm mixing up my sci-fi franchises. Never mind.
It's like the balance to the post-credit sequence of superhero.
I guess.
Minor spoiler, I guess. But then I would actually probably get maybe one of these watches because they're not horribly expensive, but I wear a Fitbit all the time, so I don't really need another watch,
I feel like these are more like collector items anyways.
Yeah, but I'm one of those idiots. When I get one of these neat kind of collector's items, I wear it anyways. Like,
well,
do you remember
I'm not saying like nobody should wear these things in public. No, by all means, do whatever you want. I don't really have an opinion that way, but it seems to me like these were more intended to just have like on a shelf or displayed or something.
Oh, possible. For sure. Like, you're gonna walk into. I think I mentioned to you like offline one time that I went to Super Saiyan, the ramen noodle bar in the Orlando area. Like, you're gonna walk into there and they're gonna have all these watches like in one of their display cases. But I'm one of those people. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember when they came out with sneakers a couple years back?
I do.
I got myself a pair of Vegetas and I wore them until they fell apart.
Nice.
Because that's what I do. I wear stuff when I like it. So I thought they were awesome and I wore them.
So would you say that you're a super fan?
Oh, I would not, though. Along that lines, there's actually, for those of you who live in the Houston, Texas area, up in a suburb of Houston in a city called Conroe, which is about, if I had to peg it, I'd say 90 minutes north of downtown Houston. So not super close to downtown Houston. If you're like visiting Houston, you don't want to go here. But in Conroe, Texas, there is another Dragon Ball themed noodle bar called Dragon Bowl C.
Oh, that's so terrible. It's great.
The obviously Dragon Bowl for Dragon Ball, and because they make bowls of noodles, and then the C is for because they're in Conroe. So, well done. Spinning along to some more news, we have the manga that has been running just recently finished their second full arc since the end of the Tournament of Power, Universal Survival Tournament, whatever you happen to call that one, which is where the anime left off. They've done since then. This is Toyotaru who writes the manga now. They have come out with a. This is their second arc, like I mentioned. It's the first one was Moro. He was I don't follow it super closely because I kind of assume eventually one day we will get there, you know. So I just see the things that I very briefly kind of see on social media. Moro is like some kind of a planet destroyer who something, and then he wishes to be young again, and something.
Okay. You sound like
He
you sound like the joke on Family Guy that they made about Star Wars and the Emperor there.
he looks like a big old evil goat. Is what Moro looks like, and I think the arc is more about Goku learning some mastery over his Ultra Instinct form, which he doesn't have at the end of the Tournament of Power, and Vegeta sort of continuing to try and catch up in that respect. And then since then, they have now done another arc, which I believe they call the Granolah arc, or they call it the Heaters arc. There's like two different antagonists. There's Granolah and another antagonist named Gas. That one just ended, and it ended with kind of a big thing. Frieza has a new form, and he is now stronger than ever. So who would win in a fight, Black Frieza or Superman? These are the important questions that everyone wants to ask. I don't care. Dovetailing into that, though, is the announcement that was sort of broken by the Twitter handle at DBS Chronicles, who I don't recall specifically, but I think this Twitter handle broke the news of like Dragon Ball Super returning, like when it first started, or he broke the news that the Broly movie was happening. He's like got a history of having some inside information. Weekly Dragon Ball episodes are set to return, picking up at the end of the Universal Survival arc. They're in pre-production or production, and the anime is slated to return to television sometime in 2023. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I don't know what we are going to do. Maybe when that happens, what we might do is something like, since we usually do 2 episodes a month, one of them will be continuing on with what we've been continuing on with, and the other one will be the previous 4 episodes of the anime or something. In any event, look for Dragon Ball to return to probably not TV in America. It'll probably instead be on like various yo-ho-ho kind of sites with fan with fan created subtitles until it finally winds up being on Toonami. They still do Toonami, right?
I think so. There's also a decent chance it might end up on Crunchyroll because they've already moved all of the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z stuff to there. So there's a decent chance that they will continue streaming Super on the Crunchyroll.
I forgot that Crunchyroll like subsumed every single other legitimate streamer of anime. Everything has been subsumed by Sony, I think, in this ultimately, because right doesn't Sony own Crunchyroll? We're spiraling closer and closer to a world where like everything is owned and all entertainment is made by Sony, Universal, and Disney. I would have at one point added Warner Brothers to that list, but the Warner HBO Discovery merger seems pretty intent on imploding that company.
I did some quick sleuthing, and yes, you're correct. It is Sony that currently owns Crunchyroll.
Did you see that they lost like $5 billion over a weekend?
No, I have not heard anything about this. Please do tell.
Okay, so Warner Brothers, is it Warner Brothers merged with Discovery, I think, is what happened. And they own HBO and they own HBO Max. The new CEO was like, "All right, you hear about this Batwoman movie or Batgirl movie that we spent $90 million on so far? No, put that one on the shelf. We're gonna call it a tax write-off. It's never coming out. This like some other movie that they had spent a bunch of money. No, put that one on the shelf. That's never coming out. We're gonna do it as a tax write-off. They have deleted several of their shows from HBO Max, and that comes from they bought up a bunch of so Cartoon Network sold off a bunch of their original programming that was like not Adult Swim stuff to HBO. HBO then put it all on HBO Max, and Cartoon Network, like by contract or whatever, had to take it down, right? Because they sold these projects.
Yeah.
HBO has deleted them from, like, you cannot watch them on HBO Max anymore. These show, and with no physical release having ever happened on some of them, these shows effectively do not exist anymore. The biggest one in terms of what I remember in terms of like people, all these people who worked on these shows and created these things are like gutted. The Batgirl thing was probably the biggest one just because it's a big dollar amount, and you know, here's HBO / Warner, whatever, shelving a movie they've spent $90 million on with a person of color who's also a woman as the lead, while they push forward with releasing their Flash movie starring Ezra Miller, who is a horrible nightmare person.
Okay, so this is probably why I didn't notice any of this stuff happening, because I was laser focused on this Ezra Miller stuff because it was so just absolutely wild and beyond anything I have ever experienced before.
Yes, Ezra Miller has terrorized like the entire state of Hawaii for like a year and a half. That movie is pushing forward. Meanwhile, they're like shelving all these other things with less problematic people. The biggest one in terms of, I remember the person tweeting something and I felt just absolutely horrible, was the creator of the show Tig and Seek, which is an animated series that was on Cartoon Network. It was developed by a guy who served as a designer, like a character designer on Rick and Morty. It featured the voice of Louis Anderson. I don't know a ton about like what age group the show was targeted towards, but the creator of that show, when HBO like deleted it from their servers and you can't watch it anymore, was just like tweeted out like, it's gone. It's all gone.
Wow.
So, you just feel terrible for these people because like, wait, and then there's stuff that was supposed to come out on HBO Max that is just not going to come out now. And like all these people are like, I had like, my family was going to come over and we were all going to watch this thing that I worked on together.
So when you say deleted off their streaming service, you mean like straight up like deleted, like all saved copies they have destroyed?
I don't know for sure. In 2022, that's such a hard thing to know for sure. Right? Because it could be it could be physically stored somewhere. It could also have never been physically stored anywhere. That kind of dovetails into a little bit of what happened with Dragon Ball Super Superhero, where someone hacked Toei's servers, and it wound up pushing the release of the movie back from April to June. And the like, I never really heard exactly what happened, but the hot rumor was like that they deleted whatever the working copy of the movie was.
Oof.
But again, Toei had some sort of redundancy to where they didn't lose everything. They just lost like their last week's worth of work or something, right?
It was probably a backup or something that they had.
Right. I don't know if these shows do still exist. This might be one of those things where if it's on a Plex server or someone is sharing it on a torrent site, that person might be the only person who currently has a quote unquote hard copy of this show. and some of these shows. I really don't know.
So I have a little bit of familiarity with how this stuff happens because I've looked into this. Um, Cartoon Network has done this in the past. I don't know if any of our listeners or you would be familiar, but there was a show called Megas XLR. It was about two guys from Jersey City who found like basically a Gundam that was sent from the future into the past, and then they fixed it up and replaced the head with like a Corvette or something like that. But it was very, very tongue-in-cheek, very much a celebration of all things like mecha, but at the same time putting like an American spin on it. And it only went, I want to say 2 seasons, and then it was canceled. Cartoon Network wrote the show off as a loss, and I guess the way that the tax laws work for media is once you take a show or a movie and you write it off as a tax loss, you are then legally prohibited from releasing it in any format until you get like that whole tax situation figured out.
So you'd have to pay off some back taxes.
Exactly. So if they are taking shows off of their streaming service and they're claiming that it's for tax reasons, then yeah, basically that means that they're not allowed to make a profit on that show.
Going into some further news, we have The Breakers is slated for release in October. I don't think there's really anything super new about that. It's in beta right now, right?
Yeah, the reaction to it has been lukewarm. I've been told there are balancing issues, but again, it's in like a beta state right now, so they're still working on it, so that's not the final say.
Yeah, I'm curious about it, right? If games weren't so expensive these days, I would check this game out for like $20 for sure. Cuz I like the concept. I like the idea of game in this franchise that's outside of the norm. For those who don't know what The Breakers is it's an asymmetrical online action game where you are an everyday human or a very depowered sort of Dragon Ball character like a Bulma or an Oolong. And I know Oolong can transform, but still, you don't have a lot of fighting power. And you have to survive an encounter with Cell or Frieza or Buu who hunts you, and you have to try and survive and escape from them.
Think of it sort of as like a digital hide and seek, if you will.
There's been games like this before, and there's been like I feel like there's been some zombie games like this where
there's also Dead by Daylight, I think, is something similar.
Yeah, where you have to like try and survive.
And one person gets to play as like horror movie monsters or legally distinct versions of horror. You'll be happy to know this game, it looks like the pre-order is set at about $20. So that would probably be the price.
Well, then I might get it.
So maybe we will check that out.
Yeah. But so our main topic of discussion, like I mentioned earlier, is Dragon Ball Super Superhero came to U.S. theaters. We're able to stream it on our ship here.
HBO didn't take it down. No, I'm just kidding.
The movie, has been kind of coming. It was originally set for release in April. It didn't come out until June due to a cyber attack against Toei. It's directed by, I believe, a first-time director, Tetsuro Kodama. This guy doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, so, what we're going to do today, and since we've already spent some time doing some news recap and such, is we're just going to more talk a little bit. We're going to recap the movie. Spoiler alert at this point, I'll say. We are going to get into spoilers. I'll try and make sure that we do a bigger spoiler alert, like as we get further narrowed into the topic itself and our reactions to it and things. And I'll try and keep, like, when I do a plot summary, it be less spoilery, but we're not going to like have like spoiler alerts and skip to this time code to avoid spoilers kind of stuff. This is just be aware. We've both seen the movie at this point. So the screenplay was by Toriyama. That's pretty neat because he these days is just sort of an advisor on the manga. He has kind of even said it's more that it's Toyotaro's thing now. So he just kind of gives some broad scope ideas and isn't super hands-on with the manga anymore. So he wrote this story. It did okay in Japan. I believe it actually opened up lower than any of the recent movies, though. The recent movies being Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, and Broly.
I do have I don't know how accurate it is, but I have a box office mojo pulled up for the domestic and international release. They're actually not too far apart. From what I'm seeing here, the domestic looked to be about almost 31 million, and the current international is at about 38 million, for a total of about 70, roughly.
Yeah, but it didn't. I think for its domestic release, for its Japanese release, that's a little bit lower
compared to the last movie you're saying.
Yeah, compared to the last. I think where it has done exceedingly well is in the United States specifically. It was the highest opening for an anime movie of all time, I believe, which beat a 23-year-old record held by like Pokemon the movie or something. And I know there's like a lot of caveats to that, right? Like it doesn't adjust for inflation, so the Pokemon movie sold more tickets and things. And that's okay. I get that, and I appreciate that, and I understand that, especially as someone who really likes old movies and old Godzilla movies and stuff. Like, I understand that King Kong versus Godzilla is still the highest selling, the highest grossing, adjusted for inflation Godzilla movie of all time from 1962. So I get that, but that's a record that stood for 23 years, which means pick an anime movie that's been released over the last 2 decades or even the last 3 to 5 years, including the Broly movie. This did better. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is actually pretty good.
Because the Broly movie was considered a pretty big success here. And I think the release strategy was different. I think this was released in more theaters in the United States than the Broly movie was, and for more show times. So you got some of that kind of goes along with it too. It's probably got a lower per theater take than the Broly movie did, would be my guess. But it's still pretty impressive that it got rolled out fairly wide across the U.S. and did quite well. For one of these movies we've talked about, they don't break anyone's bank to make, and to make $70 million, I'm quite sure it was a financial success.
Sounds like success to me, and honestly, given the last 2 movies that have come out, I enjoyed those. I thought those were pretty good. This one kind of continued the trend, so I am glad to hear that they are planning on doing this like every 2 years.
Yeah,
and if the writing in this movie is any indication, I'm just expecting it to get better over time.
Yeah, that's Toei. That's the other thing to note about the performance of the movie is Toei is very happy. They have announced that they plan on doing this every 2 to 3 years now with a new movie because this one did so well. It's just kind of important to note. It's not because the Broly movie did so well. And I think the difference is that movie, when it came to the U.S., was, I don't know if it was a Fathom event, but it was one of those sort of limited event type of things. Yeah. And I know like the theaters near me only did like 2 showings in total. This was much more wide than that. I mean, local theater...
This was more like a regular release, honestly.
Yeah. My local theater was playing it for like a full... My local theater is still playing it.
As is mine.
In fact. They are dubbed screenings. That's the other thing. I don't know about you. I saw this dubbed. I kind of had no choice.
Same. Didn't have a choice.
I guess I could have seen it subtitled at 2:30 on a work day. But you know, Lord Frieza's got us working 8 to 5, so
can't be taking breaks. Not when we're scouring the universe for the world's most powerful fighters.
But so let's delve into the movie a little bit, and then I'll do a quick plot synopsis. If I miss anything, you can feel free to
and just
correct me.
Really quick for those of you who have been listening, no, we did not make a mistake when we said our local theater was still showing it, because we in fact are streaming it to the theater on our ship, and it's just playing on a constant loop because we like the movie so much.
Right.
This is completely internally consistent in every way.
Exactly. There's no don't go looking for any hidden meanings. But so the movie starts off with a recap for people who maybe haven't watched the show in a while, the movies in a while, or haven't ever watched them. It's trying to give you a quick little recap. It says like, oh, there's this little kid named Goku, and he fought the Red Ribbon Army, and he totally kicked their butts. And then the evil Dr. Gero turned himself into an android, and Goku just kicked their butts too. And yeah, it's oversimplifying stuff, obviously, right? But, then it builds to until they fought Cell, and then they beat Cell also anyways. And
just racking up W after W. I don't know why the Red Ribbon Army keeps trying.
And now here we are in the present. The Red Ribbon Army is no longer the Red Ribbon Army, kind of, sort of. It's now a company, like there's a front company that's called Red Pharmaceuticals, and Magenta is their CEO, and he's the son of Commander Red. So he's been trying to sort of secretly rebuild the Red Ribbon Army under this pharmaceuticals company. He learns of Dr. Gero's surviving grandson named Dr. Hedo, who is this mad scientist. He's superhero obsessed. He's about to be released from jail, and Magenta's like, this is the grandson of the mind who created Cell. We think of all he could do for the Red Ribbon Army, because Cell was this great creature, this great creation. So he goes to see Dr. Hedo, who is getting out on parole after serving a grave robbing sentence, because what did they say in the movie? He got bored at his like desk job or something, and made a bunch of zombies to do his job for him.
I think if I remember correctly, it was that he was working on his own because he's hard to work with. For his first major experiment, he used, I believe it was dead bodies to create new types of androids to do menial labor, which sounds horrific when you think about it, but also that's a great way to like automate jobs. But, that's beside the point. Anyways, so yeah, he essentially had like 3 zombies that were working like in a convenience store, and it freaked everybody out, and he got arrested for it or something.
Yeah, it was a convenience store. That's right. So Magenta's like, come work for us, and Hedo's like, I don't know, like I like superheroes, and everything I've ever heard about this Red Ribbon Army is that you guys are bad. Magenta plays it as, no, we're not bad. We're just trying to protect the Earth, to make it safe from these people. And then they show him Goku and Gohan and Piccolo and Vegeta, and they're like, these guys are aliens. We don't know what they're doing, but we know they're powerful, and we're pretty sure they're going to try and take over the Earth someday. In fact, they hang out with Piccolo, who, you remember King Piccolo. Everyone remembers King Piccolo. He tried to destroy the Earth. They're fighting against this other white and purple guy, and they're fighting against this other pink dude, and like it's, Frieza and Majin Buu, and, Magenta ends up painting Goku and Vegeta and Gohan as these nefarious aliens who just will one day take over the Earth. And
in legal circles, we call this the Lex Luthor defense.
and so Dr. Hedo accepts the offer to work with the Red Ribbon Army. He goes off and he creates some prototypes, basically. And they are Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. I think in an old episode, I called them Alpha and Beta. They are Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. Then, meanwhile, a few things are happening with our cast of main characters. Piccolo is training Pan on a daily basis. He's kind of harsh on her. She's like, train me to go Super Saiyan, train me to use energy blasts. And he's like, no, not until you learn how to fly. And she's like, but it's hard. And he's like, well, learn how to fly or too bad. He's not as rough as he is with Gohan, where he's like, either learn to fly or die. But like, he's softened over the years. But he's still pretty tough, and he's also very generally angry at Gohan for just constantly like studying and not ever training. Goku and Vegeta, meanwhile, are on Beerus's planet training with Broly, who's being taught some control since he, melted the polar ice caps last time.
No big deal.
They are given a task, Vegeta and Goku, to teach Broly kind of how to reserve his power and how to have a fight where you never lose control by having a battle against each other where they're not allowed to use any energy blasts or any transformations. They're having a sparring match against each other, and they start fighting. Meanwhile, Beerus is quite taken with Chilai. That was a pretty funny moment.
That was an interesting moment.
Yep. I want to talk about a little bit more about that because there's a line from that made me think something when I saw the movie. But they're all like doing their thing and eating ice cream, and they throw some ice cream like containers, and they happen to land on top of Whis' staff so that he can't see if there's any incoming calls, which back on Earth, as Piccolo is meditating, Gamma 2 attacks him. And Gamma 2 is like, King Piccolo, hello, how dare you? Let's fight, And then Gamma 2 thinks he has defeated Piccolo. Piccolo is like, no one's called me King Piccolo in a long time. I better follow this guy and figure out what his deal is. He goes and infiltrates the Red Ribbon Army base. After he has infiltrated the base, he's like, holy crap, there's some bad stuff going on here. The Red Ribbon Army's back. They got these 2 new androids, Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. They seem pretty strong. They've talked about... Does he find out immediately that there's a new cell? He finds out pretty quick.
Yeah, he finds out... I'm pretty sure he finds out about Cell Max. He finds out about both the Gammas instead of just Gamma 2. And just that, like, Red Ribbon's involved, and like everything is just going wrong here.
Yeah, he learns that there's a new Cell Max, that's being created, and he's like, Cell, oh my god! And especially if it's a new and improved Cell, I better go tell Bulma to get Vegeta's butt back here. And Bulma is like, I can't get a hold of Whis, and he's like, well then I better go tell Gohan, and Gohan's like, psh. I'm studying, dog.
He cares not a whit.
But no, he can't get Gohan to like listen to him and take him seriously. So his plan, or no, I'm sorry, I got it a little twisted. He learns that the Red Ribbon Army wants to send Gamma 1 or 2, I'm not sure which, after Gohan. Because he's like, oh, they think they've taken out Piccolo, so their next target is Gohan. He's like, I don't want them showing up at Gohan's house and like hurting his family. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dress up like one of them. I'm going to pretend to kidnap Pan. And then we're going to tell Gohan that we've kidnapped Pan and like bring him here. And then that way he'll come here and maybe he'll take it seriously if he thinks his daughter's in danger. Piccolo has a rather funny misadventure of kidnapping Pan. And, she plays along because he's like, hey, it's just me. And she's like, yeah, no, I knew it was you right away. I could sense your energy. He also, Piccolo, at some point in here, I'm not sure which, goes and sees Bulma. And he's like, listen, do you got the Dragon Balls? And she's like, yeah, I got the Dragon Balls. And he's like, let's wish on the dragon to like unleash whatever potential power I used to have, because I remember the Grand Elder Namekian did that for Gohan at one point, and that was never done for me. So let's wish on that. Then the dragon's like, oh, here, have a little power boost. And then he gives the rest of the wishes to Bulma, who wishes for a tighter butt and fewer wrinkles.
Who's been consistently searching for the Dragon Balls for 2 reasons. 1, to keep them out of the hands of anybody who doesn't deserve them. And 2, to do all of her cosmetic surgery.
Yes. Her wishes are like, can you give me a tighter butt? Can you get rid of my wrinkles and make my face look a little bit smoother, but don't make it look like I've had any work done? Which we kind of knew in the Broly movie too, but this is where Piccolo's learning about it. But she says like she keeps taking 5 years off of her life, or is it 2?
I'm not sure what the number is, but yeah, she's like artificially extending her youth.
Yeah, it's because it's the same exact number of years off of her life that Frieza wants to add to his height, and it's and it's for the same reason of if I do it too much, everyone will notice. So you have to just do it a little at a time. But so Piccolo gets like a little power boost, and then now the stage is set, right? Gohan's going to go to the Red Ribbon Army base, their secret hidden base, to try and save his daughter. Piccolo has a power boost. He actually gets a new form. They have to fight the Gammas and hope that Cell Max does not get completed and not get released. Spoiler alert, that happens, obviously. But that's sort of the thrust of this story at this point is trying to stop the Gammas and then trying to stop Cell Max. Some twists and turns and things like that along the way. And then the movie ends. I don't want to go too much deeper into plot because I think we can just kind of talk about some of the spoilers as we give our thoughts on the movie. So if you've made it this far and you feel like you haven't had it spoiled for you, I would say this may be the point where you want to stop, but if not, keep venturing on. I'm curious, Bekinney, to hear your thoughts. How did you feel walking out of this?
I mean, it was positive walking out. I had a lot of fun with this movie compared to Dragon Ball movies of the past, except for the last 2 that came out. The plot seemed a little bit more cohesive. There was a lot of really good character moments that had nothing to do with fighting, which was great. I think probably my biggest disappointment started at the first 5 minutes of the movie when they're doing their flashback of like, here's what's happened in Dragon Ball so far, and they talk about like Red Ribbon and all that. While they're doing that, they have this really gorgeous, crisp, smooth traditional 2D animation going on to sort of like condense some of those scenes from the original anime and stuff together. They've been given the HD treatment, if you will. It looks fantastic. And then you get to the new 3D graphics, and while they do a lot of things with the 3D graphics really well, particularly backgrounds and a lot of action sequences are really smooth and really enjoyable to look at. There are some things that kind of look like booty, and I know you've got probably a couple examples to flesh that out. But my overall thing was that kind of was like a punch in the gut, like first thing on the movie, of look what we could have done, and then look what we actually did. That was probably my biggest gripe about it. But by the end of the movie, I was I guess used to the 3D graphics, and so I kind of gotten over it by the end of the movie. But like, yeah, every time there was a flashback and we got this really nice animation, I was just like, oh man.
Yeah, you're not too far off of what my thoughts were. I mean, I came out thinking very, very positive. I had a very fun time with it. And yeah, right at the very beginning I was like, "Oh, this looks great." And then I was like, "Oh, wait." The problem really becomes that I think some of the worst moments with the 3D animation are butted up right against those really gorgeous, crisp 2D animation moments. You have that goes almost pretty quickly and directly into Piccolo and Pan training. And they have like a quick little battle that looks like okay, like they have like a little sparring match, and then they just sit down and relax and like drink some water, and like while they're sitting there drinking, I'm like, oh god, no, something is way wrong with these water bottles, with the way the water is sloshing around inside of them, with the way that they are just like when a character is just walking rather than fighting and performing some sort of faster animate, you're like, ooh, something's wrong with the walk cycle here. Something doesn't look okay. And then like the next scene or one of the next scenes, I might be jumbling up the order a little bit, but some of the earliest scenes, there's like that. And then one of the other very early scenes is Dr. Hedo sitting in the car with Magenta and what was the Carmine? Carmine's a highlight character that I didn't even mention in my plot synopsis, but he's a great character. But they're sitting there in the car talking about Dr. Hedo joining the Red Ribbon Army, and I swear, every time Dr. Hedo takes a bite out of an Oreo, it looks not at all like he's biting it. It looks like he's opening his mouth and closing it, and a piece of the Oreo is disappearing, but he's not biting it. Yeah. It's quite poorly done, and those are like the earliest moments of the animation in this movie, and you're like, oh god.
I think there was also a thing that I had noticed while that whole conversation where they're in the car. It kind of looked like an old like PS2 cutscene from like a video game.
Yeah, with
like
their
they had some issues with some of the line work came off looking really, I guess pixelated would be the word for it.
Yeah, and there's a lack of expressiveness in their faces.
Yeah, that's another big one.
It gets then significantly better from there, right? It's one of those things. I've talked about it before, like in other just random sort of podcasts and situations and things that I've been on. Bad things always look worse when you butt them up closely against good things. Yeah. And you start the movie with this really like amazing looking stuff, and then like the next couple of scenes have what are probably some of the worst looking moments of animation in the entire movie. And it's like, oh god, oh no.
Well, and then it makes me start to wonder, like, because like you said, I felt the same way as the movie progressed. It got better visually, but then I'm starting to wonder, well, how much of that is that they actually like started working with what they had better, or it was just a lack of butting it up against those flashback scenes that made it look worse.
Yeah, maybe, but I do think it looks good in the action sequences. I think it looks, the fight sequences all looked fine. They looked smooth. They were fun. Anytime they did like a big panoramic shot and like showed you like the whole base, the Red Ribbon Army and things like that, yeah. I thought that all looked really, those were really good. Nice. It had like a crispness to it. My favorite thing about the movie, and it was something they incorporated a lot early on, was they really leaned into the subtitle of superhero. They really leaned into having the explosive effects and visual effects behind people. There's a great joke about that with Piccolo when he's, why can I see his sound effects?
Yeah. Which is a callback to Toriyama's style. And right. How he was using those onomatopoeias in English before anybody else really was.
Right. So, like, I thought that stuff was great. I thought the humor, like, was awesome. And I think one of the things that makes it so great is there's a lot of humor in it that is stuff that's, like, low-hanging fruit that I think a lot of young kids or very casual viewers will get a chuckle at or an outright laugh at. And then there's stuff that hits me in a more sort of ironic, kind of subversive, kind of so stupid it has to be a joke and therefore it is funny kind of humor.
What? Like, subversion in my Toriyama writing? Say it ain't so.
Like when Goten and Trunks first show up because Bulma brings them to because Piccolo's like, go get all the strongest fighters you can since we can't get Goku and Vegeta. And she arrives with Goten and Trunks and Android 18. And then there's a great joke because she goes, oh, and Krillin's also here. That was funny. And then also Piccolo is like, Goten and Trunks, you guys are huge. And Gohan's just like, you think there's like an obvious like, oh yeah, we trained in the hyperbolic time chamber or the room of spirit and time, if that's
Yeah.
what you prefer to call it, but no, Gohan goes, yeah, us Saiyans, we stay the same size for a long time and then we just get big.
Which begs the question, what happened to Vegeta?
I was like, that's so stupid. It's amazing. Just like when they're
Well,
fighting,
it
when
kind
they're
of fits
fighting,
the lore, really, when you think about it.
it does. But it's so like, it's such like a stupid explanation that I loved it. Just like the other thing that made me laugh, that I was the only person in my theater who laughed. But it was when Cell Max kind of emerges and they're fighting him and he's giant, and Gohan goes, Piccolo, turn giant like you did in the tournament against my dad. And he goes, oh yeah, I forgot I could do that.
I love how they lean into like these guys have been around for so long and they've developed so many techniques that they actually forget some stuff that they can do.
Yeah. I laughed at that. I was like the only person in the theater who laughed. Everyone else was like, oh, that makes sense, you know? I was just like, that's so stupid, it's great. My other big negative, if I'm going to throw it might be my only other like big negative, I might have other nitpicks and things, is Cell Max. In so many ways, really, right? I don't think of him as much in terms of a big bad of a movie, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Dragon Ball big bads, for the most part, tend to have some sort of emotional connection to the actual plot, and Cell Max is just a giant, big, nasty monster. And then going along with that is he feels not one whip like Cell in any way.
Yeah, outside of what he looks like, he doesn't act like Cell. He doesn't have that same sort of, I guess, ego. And I mean, because he's mostly just like a mindless monster in this movie.
Yeah. And I get the story reason is he's not finished yet, you know, but I don't know. If you're going to have Cell and Gohan, boy, wouldn't you want to have some actual kind of connectivity there that makes it feel like it matters that it's Cell and Gohan again?
Yeah, you would hope. But
you know, because when
that's not what they decided to do.
Because when they brought back Frieza, it felt like it mattered in Resurrection F. You know, like it feels like it matters for Vegeta and Goku. Like it feels like it matters for and Frieza. It feels like it matters for all three of them.
Broly, they did the same thing. They connected Broly to Goku and Vegeta through Frieza. Oh, if I can't beat you, I'll just find somebody who can.
Right. Cell Max is like, he's just a big nasty monster, and the whole, I'm sorry, this gets into one of those complaints that in terms of watching a movie and sitting there enjoying the movie, I really didn't care about this. But in terms of, you're going to call this Cell, I don't know how you can be Cell and not regenerate.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything about that because it seemed like a pretty major plot hole. But then again, he's, air quotes, not finished, so maybe he doesn't have his regeneration yet.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we're making this many excuses for the villain based on he wasn't finished yet, I feel like maybe that probably should have been gone over a few times in the writer's room.
Yeah. It's everything else about, like, I really liked Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. I thought those were really cool characters. I really liked the way they played into both the antagonist and then protagonist sort of roles, right?
Yeah.
You know, especially like early on when they're, you know, fighting Piccolo and they're calling him King Piccolo, and, you know, they think that they're the good guys, but they're being antagonists. That's a really fun antagonist type of antagonist to have in a movie, is one that very much thinks they're the good guys. And then B, you get that cool moment where they realize they've been on the wrong side all this time.
And now you've got them fighting alongside the heroes and doing heroic things, like getting Thanos snapped.
Yeah, Gamma 2 has an awesome... Is it Gamma 2 or 1? Which one of them has the good self-sacrifice moment?
It was 2 sacrifices himself, and then he, like, turns into dust, and all I could think while I was watching that was, they stole that from Avengers.
I mean, people tend to just dust in Dragon Ball, though, when they die in general.
Yeah, but it's usually much more violent, like in the middle of an energy beam or something.
But no, I thought Piccolo's new orange Piccolo form was pretty good.
I really like that one. I was not as big of a fan of Gohan's Ultra Dad Instinct.
I think it's called Beast Gohan.
Okay, I like mine better. I was just power of Dad.
It worked for me. I liked it.
I mean, again, this is coming from somebody who hasn't watched a whole lot of Super, and my knowledge of things like Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego are based solely off of just things that I hear secondhand at this point. I mean,
I'll say I'm not with
I
you on
get that
one.
it's like it's supposed to be a callback to when he goes Super Saiyan 2 versus the Perfect Cell, but it almost felt a little bit too close to like Super Saiyan 3 for me.
I did like using the special beam cannon.
That was a nice touch. Because in reality, we all know the truth that Piccolo is really Gohan's father. When it really comes down to it.
There's some great moments with Piccolo, with Pan. I liked the moment when he's pretending to hurt her.
Oh yeah.
That was a cool little moment. Yeah, I had a really good time with it, and there's a lot to really like. Like we said, I think the humor is very good. I think a lot of the character work is fun. I would not at all be opposed to seeing Dr. Hedo and the Gammas, although Gamma 2 is dead, but I wouldn't be opposed at all to seeing some of those characters reappear. And Carmine away.
I think gets away, yes. And I'm all
he's
for
knocked
seeing
out.
more Carmine. I'm all right with
yeah.
Carmine.
I want a Carmine movie.
I love that like the limo has a special bump out in the hood for his
His
pompadour.
hair.
That's great. I love it.
I liked how he very early he goes into a meeting with Magenta and like gives him a presentation, and it's Carmine Presents is like at the heading of his presentation, and then later in the movie he does another one, and it's Carmine Presents, and it's like a Carmine presentation directed by Carmine, written by Carmine, produced by Carmine.
Yeah,
like I liked how
he's got like the film executive feel to him almost.
And you got the joke the first time, like Carmine Presents, and then like they did it again, but then the next time they did it, they added more things.
Yeah. They doubled down on it. It was great. I also love how they also acknowledge how ridiculous the car looks with the bump out on it. When Hedo mentions like there was a limo sitting outside the prison yard with a bump on top of it. That seemed pretty conspicuous to me.
Oh yeah, Magenta does die. You're right. I just thought of it. He gets stung.
I'm sorry. I'm right. That's never happened before.
He gets stung by that bee.
I liked the overall tone of this movie. I liked how it was tongue-in-cheek in a lot of spots. Like you said, the humor, I think, was pretty good. I also really enjoyed that this was, in Dragon Ball terms, this was a lower-stakes movie and allowed a lot of the like secondary characters to shine outside of Goku and Vegeta's shadows. Yeah, overall, I think this was a lot of fun. I recommend it to folks, particularly if you're a fan of Dragon Ball. Just a good time in general. It's easy to overlook some of the shortcomings.
And then yes, we didn't mention the post-credit sequence yet. I think we all know how I felt about it. If you've seen the movie, I loved it.
I love that they reveal what they reveal, but we don't get to see any of it. And it's just this major moment, big thing for Vegeta, and we don't get to see it happen.
Yeah. So, yep, we said spoilers. So yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, I guess too bad. But yes, in their sparring match, where they're not allowed to transform and not allowed to use ki blasts, Vegeta wins, and it's a great moment for him. He collapses in joy. I finally beat Kakarot. It's awesome. I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought especially what it really hammers home is what they talked about right in the very beginning when they showed Goku and Vegeta's just sitting there like meditating, and Goku's like, you're gonna lose a step, and Vegeta's like, no, think about it. Power for power, Jiren wasn't as strong as us. We are stronger than him, and yet he could have beaten either one of us in that fight if we hadn't all worked together, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, and it's because he moves differently. He acts differently. We have to train ourselves differently. And then that winds up being ultimately what helps Vegeta beat Goku in their sparring match. Is Whis even makes a comment at one point. He says something like, Vegeta is, his movements are a lot more precise, and that something else,
Yeah.
he's fighting differently.
I think even immediately after that discussion between Goku and Vegeta, I think Whis also interjects and is like, "Yeah, no, he's totally right."
Yes. And I like that. I like the it's not just about power,
It's about skill as well, sure.
Right.
And when you think about it, that does make sense because think about I'm thinking about professional boxing, right? Even the featherweight guys, I wouldn't want to get into a ring with them, and I'm probably twice as big as they are, just because they would absolutely destroy me. They're just immense measure of skill as opposed to any actual physical difference.
Right. Yeah. So I like that. I thought it was funny. I thought it was especially funny, here it is. It's this big moment for Vegeta, right? It's this crowning kind of achievement for him that finally he and Goku got to have a one-on-one match that nobody interrupted. Everyone who's watching it is bored out of their minds
because it's so even for so long.
And the only other person who's not bored out of his mind is Broly, who is weeping with pride.
Yeah.
It was great.
I like how it's little things like that help show how different Saiyans are compared to everyone else in the universe.
Oh, going back since we're on that planet again. Okay, when Beerus sees Chilai and has his little brong, and Whis makes a comment and he goes, "Oh, I'm surprised nobody ever noticed that Lord Beerus has a type." Okay. Be wary of how you do this because the internet is an awful place. An awful, awful place. But if you Google Chilai and you Google Bulma and you look at what these two characters look like,
they're palette swaps.
is this a subtle nod that Beerus has had a crush on Bulma?
I think it might. That's the way I interpreted it. I don't know if that's correct, but that's the way I took it.
That the one of the big reasons he didn't destroy the Earth is because he wouldn't want to destroy Bulma.
Yeah. And that also helps explain why he and Whis are so friendly to Bulma. How they're always asking her to bring him food and stuff.
It also, you know what else it does? It says he's got a crush on her, but he is too, he respects the sanctity of marriage.
That's that's stand-up god of destruction right there. He's like, I'll destroy the world, but not matrimony.
Exactly. I won't get between Vegeta and Bulma. But if anything ever happens, he's going to be first in line.
That's probably true.
So let's do what we've done the last few times we've talked. I don't know if it's the last few times. Well, yeah. Let's do our star ratings, except not star ratings. We'll do our Dragon Ball ratings.
Yes, out of 7. The superior scale. I'll go first. I'll give it a 5 out of 7. It's a fun movie. I think if you're already a fan, it's got a bunch of stuff you're gonna love. If you're not a fan, I think it's a great one-off. It gives you the background you need, and it's pretty self-contained, and that's really all you need to enjoy it.
I'm right there. I'm at a 5 out of 7, which I would probably translate to a 3.5 out of 5.
That sounds about right.
I'd be on a 5 scale. I'd be somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4. I don't think I could quite push it to a 4, but on our 7 Dragon Ball scale, I'm at like, I don't think you can do halves of Dragon Balls.
If you do, you'll upset the Eternal Dragon, so we can't have
So I think I'd be at about a 5 with like something like Battle of Gods. I think is my favorite, maybe. So that would probably be a 7, and Broly would be a solid 6, maybe a 7, because that one's tough. Because there was something about the score of that one that just irked me a little bit. Whenever it was chanting Vegeta, I was like, oh my god, I don't care. But no, I'm at a 5. Yeah, I think like you said, it's pretty well self-contained. You know, Bekinney and I have a buddy who did not tell us his thoughts ever after watching it, but he was watching it and he said, you know, like he hasn't watched anything since the end of the Majin Buu stuff, and I would have a hard time believing he was in any way, shape, or form lost. All right, so to recap everything on our day, we're going to have maybe more new anime, maybe more new movies. So will we see the Dragon Ball anime return in 2023? Will we see further movies in 2024, 2026, and beyond? Find out next time. And help us achieve our final forum.
Final Form is written and produced by Tom Gwelly. It is performed by Dan Kinney and Tom Gwelly. Our webmaster is Dan Kinney. Our theme music is provided by YouTube content creator GVG Kid. Want to learn more about the Dragon Ball universe, including concept art, behind-the-scenes interviews, and recommendations from Jelli and Bekinney? Connect with us on social media. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Final Forum Pod. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you receive your podcasts. And of course, make sure to share it with your friends and family and help us spread the word of the glory of Lord Frieza. The Frieza Force thanks you for your listenership.